Hi there, in this demo I'm going to be giving a quick walkthrough of some of our new developer portal functionality that we've recently added to the Kuadrant project. We're going to be taking a look at some of the roles that will be at play in this particular scenario as well. So one of them would be the role of a platform engineer. That'll be somebody maybe who's responsible for creating Kuadrant policies on a cluster to ensure that services are exposed in maybe an enterprise specific way, that the auth works the same. Things like that there's always common rate limit policies applied to services. We'll also be taking and assuming the role of an API owner, and how we sort of see an API owner is basically as somebody who within an enterprise is responsible for making APIs available in a local Backstage instance that might be running on a cluster somewhere in the enterprise. So those users will be looking at the various assets that are associated with APIs, making sure that those are available so that users within an enterprise can discover those APIs and make use of them. And lastly, we'll also be taking a look at the role of the API consumer as well. So this will be a user kind of coming along, logging into the Backstage instance, taking a look around, discovering an API, and then actually getting access to that API as well. Okay, to kick things off, I'm just going to take a quick look around a Kubernetes cluster that I've got available to me. It's already got everything that we need for the demo installed. So we have a particular service that's deployed to this cluster, a toy store API that's exposed via a gateway. So we have a gateway available for that, an HTTP route that actually exposes the toy store API. And we also have a Kuadrant plan policy that's associated with that particular HTTP route as well. So plan policies in a Kuadrant context are basically what we kind of refer to internally as sort of meta policies. So meta policies are policies that kind of create other policies basically to actually do actual enforcement. So plan policies have these named tiers that are within them. In this case, we've got tiers for gold, bronze, and silver with different limits for those different tiers. And then also there's some predicates that are associated with each of those tiers, which sort of figures out what plan you're associated with, depending on how you've actually authenticated as a user. So we're going to step into that a little bit later in the demo. So it's a very simple sort of plan policy that we've got applied to your gold tier users have 100 requests per day, silver 50, and bronze users have 10 requests per day. Okay, so all this stuff exists. So let's maybe take a look at our first new persona and some of our new APIs that we've got available to us. So I'm going to quickly step into Backstage for a minute here, and I'm going to log in as an API owner. Okay, in this scenario, I'm logged in as an API owner. So I'm going to quickly navigate to the Kuadrant API products page. And what we're going to do here is we're going to make that toy store app that we just had a quick look at. We're going to expose that and we're going to make that available in a Backstage catalog. So we've already got a couple of existing API products here, but we're going to go and create a new one. So I'm going to create one called Toy Store. I'm going to skip over some of this. So I'll just fill this in quickly, put in an example. Spec URL for an open API spec. And I'm going to pick an HTTP route. So we already have a toy store route that's available to us in this cluster. This particular toy store route has a plan policy already associated with it. And we can see the plan, the tiers that are available to us and the associated rate limits. So we can get a quick look at that. So I'm going to quickly scan through that lifecycle. That's fine. This particular API can make use of, because of the plan policy, API keys for authentication. It's up to you as to what way you want to expose sort of access in terms of authorization to your API. API keys are kind of nice and simple if you don't have that many users. Typically, most enterprises will probably end up using OADC sort of tokens and stuff for auth, but in this particular demo, we're going to take a look at API key auth. And I'm going to set manual approval. There's two different modes that we can pick as well for API key approval. So one for where there needs to be a human in the loop basically to approve access to an API, or the other is automatic. I'm going to stick it on manual for now. So if I click on create, in a moment we should see this new toy store item available in the catalog. And in here we can navigate around and we can take a look at some of the metadata that's associated with this particular API product. API products are actually a new CRD that we've made available as part of the Kuadrant operator. So they essentially represent discoverable HTTP routes that exist on a cluster. So they are associated with a standard sort of catalog entity resource as well. So they exist in the standard Backstage catalog for discoverability. And also we've added, as part of the plugin as well, there's this new API keys area, so we can access or request access to this particular API as well in a sort of handy way as well. Okay, so this particular role, we've kind of done the discovery part. So we've found an API, Toy Store API, and we've now made it available in the Backstage catalog for consumers to come along to discover and to request access to. Okay, in this part of the demo, we're now logged in as a different user. We're logged in as an API consumer. So in this role, we have access to the catalog. We can have a look at around and we can see what APIs are available in terms of discoverability. We can see what documentation exists for those APIs, open API specs, that kind of thing. And also request access, because this particular API makes use of API keys. We can actually do a request for an API key as well in order to be able to actually make use of the API. So we're going to step through that flow now. So if we have a look at our catalog, we can see that we've got this Toy Store app, which is the one that I just published. So if we pop in here and we pop into the API key section, I don't have any API keys for this Toy Store app yet, so I'm going to request access. So I'm going to select a particular tier that I want to make use of. I feel very important, so I'm going to request a gold tier here. Hopefully I'll get this request will get approved. So I'm going to put in a use case here. And I'm going to submit a request. So this particular API, if you remember from before, when we made it available in the catalog, we picked the needs manual approval sort of mode basically for this particular API. So my request has gone into the queue, and then we need to switch roles basically to be an API owner. An API owner who actually opens this API will need to come along to actually approve access. So I'm going to quickly switch user once more as part of this demo as well to be an API owner again, and I'll approve access to this particular API. Okay, so I've switched user and I'm now logged in again once more as the API owner. So if I go along to this particular tab here, we'll see that we have a new API key approval request. We can take a look at this. There's a use case here. This particular user wants access to this API. We're going to go along and we're going to approve that request. So that will actually issue a physical key now to that particular user. So now I'm going to quickly swap user and go back to the role of a consumer, the one who did that API key request originally. And we go back to our API, which is the Toy Store one, and we go back into our API keys. We'll see that that particular API key request is now being granted. It's no longer in the pending pile. And we can see that we have an API key available to us. So API keys in this particular scenario are revealed once. So we can show the API key once, and then after that, you can't reveal them again. So I'm going to grab my API key because I'm going to need this for the next part of the demo. I'm going to copy that. Store a little note off to the side, and we're going to make use of that in the next part of the demo as well. So if we pop down here, we'll see that we've got some example code paths here for actually making use of the API key that we've got with the actual endpoint that we've got available to us for the Toy Store app. There's a couple of examples in different languages here with curl, etc. as well. Okay, so the last part of the demo, I just want to quickly show that API key working. So I'm going to export that API key, which I just copied there a moment ago. I have a little snippet here to get the gateway's IP address as well, which I'm going to make use of in this next curl request. And I'm going to do a curl to that particular Toy Store endpoint, which should give us a little echo response as well. And that works. We can see that our key is actually working if I just maybe add this quickly. So that's invalid, and make a request again. I would see that I would be getting back a 401 unauthorized response back from the that particular policy, which is protecting this API. So we've covered quite a few things as part of this demo. We've talked about a couple of different roles. We've explored the new Backstage plugin and its UI. There is a new version of that going to be available shortly in the next release of Kuadrant in the coming week or so. In addition to that, we also have plans to make that particular UI available as part of our OpenShift console plugin in the not too distant future as well. So one other thing that I might show just before we wrap as well is maybe some of the new CRDs that are available. So all of the things that we've been creating on cluster, like the API product, etc. These are all resources that are CRDs on a cluster. So you can create these things as part of like a CI/CD sort of pipeline, things like that as well. So these are all just Kubernetes native objects as well. So if we take a look at the cluster and we do have a look at our API products that we have available. So these would be the API products that are available on the actual Backstage plugin that we were looking at. And this is the one that we were creating as part of the demo. So if we take a quick look at that. In the toy store namespace. And I've put that as YAML. So here we can see the actual API product that represented that toy store service, the name, description, all that kind of metadata comes from this particular resource as well. And some other stuff around what plans are available, that kind of thing too. They're kind of copied to the resource as well. Yeah, so hopefully that was helpful. If you have any feedback on what you've seen today, please reach out to us on any of our Kuadrant channels. Thanks a million.